Alright, so we're working on a 9912 Tacoma. Got to change the rack and pinion, the whole assembly. What has happened to this thing is it's got a, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but I might be able to. But it has got a whole lot of slack in it, and what's happened is over the years, move this boot out of the way. And anyways, you can see over the years that's supposed to be shiny clean metal rod, chrome, and what's happened is this boot has allowed sand, mud, dirt, and grit in there, and it's becoming abrasive. What it's done is actually polished and wore this ring and pinion out, or rack and pinion, and caused an excessive amount of slack. When I first seen this, I thought that the inner tie rod end right here was worn out, but actually this don't have any slack in it. It's the rod itself going into the rack. So you're not going to be able to see that very well, probably. A little bit. Anyways, so we ordered a new rack and pinion, and it actually comes with the inner tie rod end. So I'm going to have to take it loose from here, try to count the number of threads so I can keep it fairly aligned. I won't have to have it aligned anyways because it's not going to be perfect. So I have to take, there we go. So we have to take this bolt out. There's one right here that runs through the top. It's going to be a little bit of a pain. And there's a strap right here with two bolts in it. We'll have to take it out. And of course the steering shaft, and I want to have to clock the steering wheel and to keep up with it. And then take this pinch bolt out of here, spread this, and then knock this off of the steering shaft. And then of course there's a pressure and return line back there. So it's a pretty lengthy little job, but not too awful bad. On this particular setup here, some of them's a lot worse. So we'll start taking things apart and show you where we go from here. Alright, now that I've got the tie rod ends disconnected, you can actually see how much slack is in this. I would say a good, probably 1/4 of an inch. That's a lot. Looks like probably may have been leaking some power steering fluid out that seal too, I would think. I don't see how it couldn't really. Alright, so here's the old rack and pinion. Finally got it out compared to the new one. Usually right here I can take out a pinch bolt and leave the rag coupling and stuff on the steering shaft, but in this case I couldn't get this to separate, so I just went ahead and unbolted the rag coupling. That way I can get out here where I can actually get to it and try to get that off. And over here, it's a little too dark now under the truck to get the camera to see anything, but basically on the other end of your tie rod you've got a jam nut, and basically a piece of all thread is what it looks like, that's attached to the other end of the outer tie rod end with the jam nut. And what I do to keep this fairly close so the alignment's not too far off is I'll break the jam nut loose and back it off about half a turn. And then since this inner tie rod end is a ball and joint or ball and socket coupling, you can actually spin this. It's kind of tight, especially on the new ones, but you can spin this out and leave the outer tie rod ends in place on this one. So that way whenever you put the new one in, you screw it up to the jam nut and then back it until it touches and back it off half a turn and then tighten the jam nut up. And you don't want to put Loctite on this end because whenever they go to do an alignment, you want to actually be able to break this back loose. But if you do change the inner tie rod end, you do want to put some Loctite on that. And make sure it's very tight. I still have to change this clamp over, put it on the new one. But other than that, the pressure line on this one was seized, so it took me probably a good 35-40 minutes to get it to break loose and turn without turning the whole line and twisting them too, so it took a little bit of time. But that, and I had to drop the skid plate on this one too to make access to the bolts a little easier. So you notice I've got the skid plate off of it. But and also the fluid looked a little black. And plus two, where this rack and pinion had so much slack in there, I was afraid it had contaminants in it. You know, metal shavings, particles, and all that stuff. So after I got the lines off, and I've got a drain pan under it, what I done is I took about half a quart of power steering fluid, which in this case it's a Dextron 3 power steering, or Dextron 3 automatic transmission fluid. And I filled the reservoir up and just let it run through the system, so that way it would kind of flush the system out a little bit, go through the lines, and any contaminated oil that was in there, you know, it'll get pushed out. I was told this pump is about a year and a half old, so it's fairly new. It's been changed, and the truck is a pretty low mileage, so that should be fine. But yeah, I'm going to pull this coupler off. There's one of my little spring clamps for the return line. But I want to pull this off, and usually the way I do this is I've got the pinch bolt out, and you can just drive a small chisel in here and just kind of spread that open a little bit and spray some penetrating oil in there and let it soak. And then you can usually just take something and start tapping this back here, and it'll slide through. So, and also what I like to do is whenever I take these loose or remove a rack and pinion, I'll jack the front of the vehicle up, and I will get it to where the tires and everything are straight, like they're going straight. And I want to kind of keep note of how the steering wheel is clocked, so that way whenever I put it back, or I put this rack and pinion back, I'll make sure that it's pretty much in a centered position as far as like keeping the tires straight. And so that way you're not turning the steering wheel a whole lot, because on the horn assembly, I think it's a clock spring that allows you to turn it as much as you want and it won't hurt it. But where this vehicle has airbags, there's a possibility that, you know, how the way that the wires are ran up through there, if you turn the steering wheel a whole lot, it could possibly twist those wires up or break them or damage them. So, but yeah, other than that, I'm going to swap this over and I'll show you the end product. And also another thing is, I'll do this, I can show the customer this vehicle, but check this out. Now, I don't know if you can see that, but that is about as black as motor oil, and this is supposed to be a bright red color. Well, you know what transmission fluid, how red that is. Well, that's what that's supposed to be, so until it's very dirty and contaminated. And also, see if I can get another shot of how much slack this has without dumping oil all over my floor. That's supposed to have zero slack in it, and you probably can't see it, but you can, just by telling about the sound, you know, y'all can tell how much slack it's got in it. Alright, another thing on this little coupling here, as we'll share with you. If you notice that on the spline shaft it goes onto, there's a groove right here. So whenever you go to put this on, you notice that the bolt hole is right there. And whenever you put this pinch bolt through here, it goes through one side that's not threaded into the back side that is, and it squeezes this together. But also, if you drive this on too far or not enough, you'll notice that the bolt won't go through. And the reason is that that groove cut in the shaft actually has the bolt go through it, so it won't slide up or down. So if you look through there and see, you'll notice that that's a clean shot through there. I'll demonstrate. So I'm gonna raise it up a little bit. Now you can barely notice that part of the shaft is showing through, and it will not allow, kind of hard to see on camera, but I assure you it's there, but it will not allow that bolt to go through. It'll barely catch it. So you have to put it down to where the bolt will slide through that, and then torque to specification. And also I have to, this little barb that the return line slides onto, I gotta take it out and swap it over here too. So alright, so I've got the new rack and pinion in place. They're actually completely done. Got the outer tie rod ends back up, jam nut stopped, and all the bolts back in. Everything torqued to spec, the pressure line, return line, steering shaft, rag coupler, all that stuff. So now what needs to be done is taking front alignment. And also what you want to do is, since I've already got the front end still jacked up, fill the power steering fluid reservoir all the way up. And what you want to do is, without starting the vehicle, turn the key to the on position so the steering wheel is unlocked, and you want to turn the steering wheel from lock to lock probably about 7 or 8 times. And what that does is it actually circulates some of the fluid from the rack and pinion to the pump and to the reservoir, and pushes most of your air bubbles out. So that way you can get the majority of the air bubbles and everything out before you actually start it. And the two things that does is it eliminates a dry start on the pump, which is not good for it. So it eliminates the dry start, and also it's a lot easier to get the air bubbles out like that versus if you just started the engine and turned it. Then those large air bubbles would get whipped into the oil, and then the power steering oil would be very foamy, and it would take quite a while for the air bubbles to work out of it that way. So like I say, what you want to do is just turn the steering wheel from lock to lock several times, then let this set for about 10 minutes, and then you can start the vehicle. And then turn it lock to lock several times again, shut it off, let it set for about, I don't know, say an hour or so, then recheck your fluid level, and that's pretty much got it. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see what we do next.